Captain Jake Turner stared at the screen in his command chair. The strange signal had been coming from this empty part of space for 3 days now. His ship, the UNS Discovery, was supposed to be mapping new star systems, but this signal was different from anything they had seen before. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Commander Lisa Park. She was standing next to his chair, looking worried. Lisa had been with Jake for 5 years, and she knew when something was wrong. "I don't know," Jake said, "but we need to find out. Take us closer." The Discovery moved forward through the dark space between stars. Jake's crew was small but good. They had Dr. Amy, who studied alien life. Lieutenant Dan took care of the ship's engines. Dr. Rachel Stone helped the crew stay healthy and happy. There were 20 other people on board, all trained for long trips in space. "Captain, I'm getting something on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Tim Brooks from his station. "It's big, really big." Jake sat up straight, put it on the main screen. What they saw made everyone go quiet. Far ahead of them, space was full of lights. Hundreds of ships were fighting each other. Bright beams of energy shot back and forth. Some ships exploded in bright flashes. Others broke apart and drifted away. "My God," whispered Doctor, "it's a battle." But this was not like any battle humans had ever seen. The ships were huge, some as big as cities. On one side were ships that looked like they were made of crystal. They were beautiful but deadly, shooting blue beams of light. On the other side were ships that looked alive, with curved hulls that moved like they were breathing. These ships shot red energy that seemed to burn through space itself. "How long has this been going on?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Brooks checked his readings. "Based on the debris field, Captain, this battle has been going for months, maybe longer." Jake watched as a crystal ship the size of a mountain exploded. The light was so bright it hurt to look at. Thousands of lives had just ended in that flash. He had seen war before, but nothing like this. "Lisa, what do you make of their fighting style?" he asked. Commander Park studied the battle. She had been a tactical officer in the Earth Navy before joining the Discovery. "It's strange, Captain. Both sides are fighting in straight lines. They're not trying anything new. It's like they're following a script." Doctor was recording everything. "Captain, I've never seen technology like this. Those crystal ships are using some kind of energy I can't identify, and those organic-looking ships seem to be part machine, part living creature." "How many ships are out there?" Jake asked. "Over 2,000 on each side," Brooks replied. "And Captain, there are more coming. Long-range sensors show fleets moving in from both directions." Jake made a decision. "Take us back, we need to stay out of this." But it was too late. A group of crystal ships had broken away from the main battle. They were heading straight for the Discovery. "Red alert," Jake called out. "All hands to battle stations." The Discovery was not a warship. It had some weapons for protection, but nothing that could fight these huge alien vessels. Jake watched as the crystal ships surrounded them. Up close, they were even more beautiful and terrifying. They looked like they were carved from giant diamonds, but Jake could see weapons all over their hulls. "They're scanning us," reported Brooks. "Any response to our signals?" Jake asked. "Nothing, Captain. Wait, they're powering up some kind of device." A blue beam shot out from the lead crystal ship. It hit the Discovery, but instead of destroying them, it seemed to freeze their engines. "We can't move," called from engineering. Whatever they did, we're stuck. More crystal ships arrived. Jake counted 12 of them now, all pointing their weapons at his small ship. Then something new happened. A section of the lead ship opened up and a smaller craft came out. It moved toward the Discovery. "They want to board us," Lisa said. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was scared but ready. These people had followed him across the galaxy. They trusted him to make the right choice. "Open the docking bay," he said. "Let them come aboard, but everyone stays alert." The alien craft attached to their ship. Jake could hear new sounds through the hull. Whatever was on that ship, it was coming inside. Dr. Stone's voice came over the radio from the docking bay. "Captain, you need to see this." Jake and Lisa went down to meet their visitors. What they found changed everything they thought they knew about life in the galaxy. The aliens were tall, maybe 8 feet high. Their skin looked like it was made of the same crystal as their ships. It was smooth and blue, and light seemed to move through it. They had 4 arms and faces that were almost human, but with large eyes that glowed with inner light. One of them stepped forward. When it spoke, the words appeared in Jake's mind instead of his ears. "I am Admiral of the Empire. You are unknown to us. What species are you, and why do you intrude in our war?" Jake took a deep breath. He was about to make first contact with an alien race in the middle of what looked like the biggest war in galactic history. "I am Captain Jake Turner of the human ship Discovery. We come in peace. We didn't know about your war." The alien's eyes grew brighter. "Humans, we have no record of your kind. Where do you come from?" "Earth," Jake said. "A planet far from here. We're explorers." Admiral looked at Jake for a long moment. Then he looked around the docking bay, studying everything. "This war has lasted for 300 years, the alien said. "Many species have tried to help end it. All have failed. Some have been destroyed. What makes you think you can do better?" Jake didn't know what to say. He was just an explorer with a small ship and a crew of 25. How could they possibly help end a war between civilizations that had technology beyond human understanding? But something told him they had to try. Admiral brought the human crew to his command ship. The vessel was enormous inside, with halls that stretched for miles. Everything was made of the same crystal material, and light moved through the walls like water. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful or strange. They kept the humans in comfortable rooms, but they were clearly prisoners. Guards stood outside their doors, tall crystal beings with weapons that hummed with energy. Jake could feel the power in those weapons even from a distance. Dr. Amy spent her time studying everything she could see. She watched the guards and asked them questions. Most would not answer, but a few seemed curious about humans. She learned that they had been fighting the same war for 300 years. They had fought the same battles in the same ways, over and over. "It doesn't make sense," she told Jake during one of their meetings. "They're incredibly smart. Their technology is amazing, but they fight like they're following a recipe. They never change anything." Lieutenant Dan was having similar thoughts about the ships. The guards let him look at some of their equipment, and what he saw amazed him. The power systems were beyond anything humans had ever built, but they were used in the most basic ways possible. "Captain," he said to Jake, "their engines could power a city, but they only use them to fly in straight lines. Their weapons could destroy planets, but they only shoot at targets directly in front of them. It's like having a race car and only driving it in first gear." Dr. Rachel Stone was studying them themselves. She talked to many of them and learned about their culture. They valued honor above everything else. They followed traditions that were thousands of years old. To them, changing how they fought would be like betraying their ancestors. "They're trapped by their own success," she explained to the others. "Their way of fighting worked for so long that they can't imagine doing anything different. Even when it stops working, they keep doing it because it's the right way." Jake spent most of his time with Admiral. The alien commander was old, even by standards. He had been fighting this war for over a century. His ship was covered with marks from battles, and his crystal skin was from old wounds. "Tell me about your enemy," Jake asked during one of their talks. His eyes dimmed. "They are our opposite in every way. We value individual honor. They think as one mind. We make quick decisions. They talk everything to death. We have fought them so long that we know exactly what they will do in every situation." "If you know what they'll do, why can't you beat them?" "Because they know what we will do as well. Every battle is the same. We attack their left flank. They counter with their bioships. We respond with our crystal formations. They bring in their swarm fighters. It has been this way for 3 centuries. Jake thought about the battles he had studied in human history. What if you attacked their right flank instead? Looked shocked. That is not how it is done. The left flank attack is our most honored tradition. It was first used by Admiral or in the Battle of 7 Suns. To change it would dishonor his memory. But if it would win the war? There are things more important than winning, said, but Jake could hear doubt in his voice. On the 5th day of their captivity, invited Jake to watch a major battle. They went to the command center, a huge room with screens showing the entire battle area. Jake watched as thousands of ships moved into position. The battle began exactly as had described. They attacked the left flank of the fleet. The enemy responded with their bioships, strange living vessels that moved like fish through water. They formed their crystal formations, linking their ships together into geometric patterns that focused their weapons. Jake could see what was going to happen before it started. They would bring in their swarm fighters, small fast ships that attacked like angry bees. They would respond with their heavy bombers. Both sides would fight until they were too damaged to continue, then retreat to repair their ships. Admiral, Jake said, what if you sent a small force around to attack their command ship while they're busy with your main fleet? Impossible, replied. The command ship is protected by their defensive sphere. It cannot be broken. Have you ever tried attacking it from above? Stared at him. Above, ships do not attack from above. There is no honor in such a tactic. Jake watched the battle continue. Just as he had predicted, both fleets were tearing each other apart without gaining any advantage. Thousands of beings were dying for nothing. How many people die in battles like this? He asked. Perhaps 50,000 on each side, said sadly. It is the price of war. And what do you gain? We hold the line. We prevent the enemy from advancing. We maintain the balance. Jake felt sick. All those deaths, just to keep things exactly the same as they were before. He thought about Doctor's words. They were trapped by their own success. They had become so good at fighting this one way that they couldn't imagine any other way. The battle ended as Jake had known it would. Both fleets retreated, leaving debris and bodies floating in space. Nothing had changed. The war would continue tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. Admiral, Jake said carefully, what if I told you that humans have fought wars for thousands of years, and we've learned some things that might help? His eyes brightened with interest. What kind of things? Ways to fight that your enemy wouldn't expect. Ways to win battles without losing so many people. Ways to end wars instead of just fighting them forever. The old admiral was quiet for a long time. Jake could see him thinking, maybe for the first time in decades considering that there might be another way. Show me, said finally. Jake smiled. This was their chance. If he could convince them to try something new, maybe they could finally break the cycle of endless war. But first, he needed to understand their enemy better. I'll need to talk to some, Jake said. His eyes went wide. That is impossible, they are the enemy. Admiral, if you want to beat your enemy, you need to understand them. And if you want to end this war, you might need to talk to them. The crystal alien stood very still, processing this new idea. Jake held his breath. Everything depended on what decided next. Admiral brought Jake to the War Council. The meeting room was huge, with crystal seats arranged in perfect circles. Ancient generals sat in those seats, their crystal skin glowing with age and wisdom. Some had been fighting this war since it began 300 years ago. Jake stood in the center of the circle, feeling very small. These beings had technology that could destroy stars. They had fought battles across entire galaxies. What could one human possibly teach them? Honored generals, said, this human claims his species has knowledge that could help us win the war. The oldest general, whose crystal skin was almost white with age, spoke first. We have fought this war with honor for 3 centuries. Our tactics are proven. Our strategies are blessed by tradition. What can these small creatures know that we do not? Jake took a deep breath. With respect, General, your tactics are proven to not work. You've been fighting for 300 years and neither side has won. That means your strategies are keeping you in a tie, not helping you win. The generals made angry sounds. Their crystal skin flashed with red light. Jake realized he had just insulted thousands of years of military tradition. "Let me show you something," Jake said quickly. He asked for permission to display images on their viewing screen. "This is from my planet's history. 2 armies fighting in straight lines just like you do." The screen showed soldiers in red coats marching toward each other in perfect rows. They fought this way for hundreds of years. It was honorable. It followed all the rules. But then some armies started hiding behind trees and rocks. They attacked from the sides. They broke all the rules of honorable warfare. "Cowards," spat one of the generals. "Maybe," Jake said, "but they won. The armies that kept fighting in straight lines were defeated. The ones that learned to adapt survived." He showed them more images: tanks being stopped by simple traps, airplanes shot down by soldiers hiding in bushes, giant warships sunk by small submarines. Every time in our history, when war became too predictable, someone found a new way to fight. The side that adapted first usually won. General Baker, who had been a Marine before joining the Discovery crew, stepped forward. Had allowed him to attend the meeting. "Generals, I've studied your battle records," Baker said. "Your enemy does the same thing every time. Left flank, center push, right wheel, defensive formation. It's like they're reading from a book." "As do we," admitted one of the younger generals. "But our formations are sacred. They were created by the greatest military minds in history." "And I'm sure they were perfect for fighting 300 years ago," Baker replied. "But wars change. Enemies learn. What worked then might not work now." The ancient general's eyes flashed. "You suggest we abandon everything that makes us?" Jake had an idea. "What if we don't abandon anything? What if we just add to it? Keep your honored traditions, but also try some new ideas. If the new ideas work, great. If they don't, you still have your traditional methods." This seemed to calm the generals down. They talked among themselves in their crystal language, lights flashing between them like a light show. Finally spoke, "We will allow a small test. You may train 1 unit of our warriors in these human tactics. If they succeed in battle, we will consider expanding the program." Jake felt relief wash over him. It was a start. The training began the next day. Baker worked with a group of young warriors who had not yet learned to be afraid of new ideas. They were fast learners, but they struggled with human concepts. "Why do we hide?" asked one warrior. "It is not honorable to hide from your enemy." "Because," Baker explained, "honor doesn't matter if you're dead. Your job is to complete the mission and protect your people. Sometimes that means being sneaky." Dr. Rachel Stone worked with the warriors on thinking differently. She taught them games where they had to solve problems in new ways. At first, they always chose the traditional solution. But slowly, they began to see that there could be more than one right answer. Meanwhile, Lieutenant worked with engineers. Together, they began modifying ships to be more flexible. Instead of flying in straight lines, they created ships that could change direction quickly. Instead of weapons that only shot forward, they built guns that could turn and fire in any direction. "This is incredible," told Jake. "Their technology is so advanced that I can barely understand it, but they use it like a hammer when it could be a surgical knife." Dr. Amy made an important discovery while studying captured equipment. The enemy bioships were amazing, but they had a weakness. They were living creatures, which meant they got tired. They needed to rest and eat. They had never noticed this because they always fought the same way at the same times. "If you attacked when their ships are resting," she explained to, You could catch them unprepared. But we always attack at dawn, said. It is traditional. What if just once you attacked at night? The first test came sooner than expected. A raiding force attacked a supply convoy. Instead of responding with the usual formation, sent the human-trained unit. Jake watched from the command ship as Baker's warriors did something that had never been done before in this war. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they split into small groups. Some attacked from the front to draw attention. Others circled around to attack from behind. A third group hid among the cargo containers and waited for the perfect moment to strike. They were completely confused. Their bioships tried to respond with their usual tactics, but they weren't where they were supposed to be. The enemy formations broke apart as they tried to figure out what was happening. In less than an hour, the battle was over. The raiders were defeated with almost no losses. It was the first decisive victory either side had achieved in decades. The news spread through the fleet like fire. Young warriors wanted to learn these new tactics. Even some of the older officers began asking questions about human warfare. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. They had won one small battle, but the war was enormous. Both sides had millions of ships and trillions of soldiers. Changing how they fought would take time. More importantly, Jake realized they needed to understand the better. They had been fighting them for 3 centuries, but they didn't really know their enemy. They saw them as monsters to be destroyed, not as people with their own reasons for fighting. Admiral, Jake said to after the victory celebration, we need to capture some alive. I need to talk to them. Crystal's skin went dark. That is very dangerous, Jake Turner. They do not think like we do. They are a collective mind. Speaking to one is like speaking to all of them. Then maybe it's time someone finally had a real conversation with them. Jake looked out at the stars where the battle had been fought. Somewhere out there, they were probably as confused as they had been. They were trying to figure out what had changed, what had gone wrong with their perfect system. Maybe they were ready to listen too. The attack came 3 weeks after the first human-trained victory. Their bioships moved like a living cloud through space, faster and more desperate than Jake had ever seen them. They weren't following their usual patterns. They were hunting. They want the humans, Admiral told Jake as alarms rang through the command ship. Our spies report that their collective is very interested in your species. Jake watched the enemy ships approach. The vessels looked like giant sea creatures swimming through the void. Their hulls pulsed with life, and tentacle-like weapons reached out toward the fleet. Maybe this is our chance, Jake said. If they want to capture us, they might be willing to talk. They do not talk, replied. They absorb. They take prisoners and add their knowledge to the collective mind. The battle began badly for them. Even with their new human-inspired tactics, they were outnumbered 3-1. The bioships moved in ways that seemed impossible, bending and twisting through space like they were alive. During the fighting, a group of boarding ships broke through the defenses. They attached to the Discovery, which was docked with its command vessel. Jake felt the ship shake as something cut through the hull. They're coming for us, Commander Lisa Park said, checking her weapon. The human crew had prepared for this possibility. The who came through the breach were unlike anything Jake had imagined. They looked like they were part plant, part animal. Their skin was green and smooth, with patches that looked like bark. They moved together perfectly, like they were controlled by one mind. But instead of attacking, they stopped. One of them, slightly larger than the others, stepped forward. When it spoke, Jake heard the voice in his mind just like with the I am primary node of the collective. We wish to understand the humans who have changed the war. Jake looked at his crew. Dr. Rachel Stone nodded at him. This was what they had hoped for. I'm Captain Jake Turner. We're willing to talk. The large eyes studied Jake carefully. You have taught them to fight in new ways. This should not be possible. They do not change. They have not changed in 3 centuries. People can always change if they want to, Jake replied. The question is, do you want to change too? Seemed surprised by the question. The collective does not change. We are perfect as we are, but the war has become difficult since your arrival. Dr. Stone stepped forward. May I ask why you're fighting this war? The Archaeos replied immediately. They act without thought. They make decisions alone without consulting others. They are dangerous to the order of the galaxy. Jake thought about what Admiral had told him about and they think you're dangerous because you all think the same way, because you can't make quick decisions. They do not understand the beauty of unity, said. When all minds work together, there is no confusion, no conflict, no waste. But there's also no innovation, Dr. Amy added. She had been quietly recording everything. No new ideas, no growth. Skin changed color, showing emotion. We grow, we learn, we add the knowledge of others to our collective. By force, Jake asked. When necessary. The conversation was interrupted by another explosion. The battle outside was getting worse. Jake could hear shouting orders over the communication system. Primary node, Jake said. What if I told you that this war is based on a misunderstanding? The tilted its head. Explain. You think the Archaeos because they make individual decisions. They think you're dangerous because you all think alike. But both of your ways have strengths and weaknesses. Instead of fighting each other, you could help each other. Impossible, thee and our opposites, we cannot coexist. Dr. Stone had an idea. What if you didn't have to choose? What if there was a third option? She pulled out her portable computer and showed images from Earth. On our planet, we have both. Some decisions are made by individuals. Others are made by groups. We argue and fight sometimes, but we also work together when we need to. Stared at the images. Your species does both. How is this possible? Because we learned that different situations need different approaches, Jake explained. Sometimes you need someone to make a quick decision. Sometimes you need a group to think through a complex problem. The trick is knowing when to use which method. Lieutenant joined the conversation. I've been studying both your technologies. They have amazing individual innovations. They have incredible collective projects. If you combine them, you could build things neither side could create alone. Was quiet for a long moment. Jake could almost see the alien's mind working, consulting with the rest of the collective. The collective is interested in this possibility, finally said, but they would never agree to work with us. Are you sure about that? Jake asked. Admiral has already shown he's willing to try new ideas. Maybe other leaders would be too. Another explosion shook the ship. This one was much closer. The battle is not going well for either side, observed. Many lives are being lost for no gain. Jake saw his opportunity. What if we stopped this battle right now? What if instead of fighting we tried talking? The collective would consider this, but how would we convince them to stop fighting? Leave that to me, Jake said. He turned to his crew. Lisa, get me a communication link to Admiral. Amy, Rachel, I need you to help me explain this to both sides. Dan, start thinking about how their technologies could work together. Jake activated the ship's communication system. Within minutes, he had both Admiral and Primary Node on the same channel. It was the first time in 3 centuries that leaders from both sides had spoken to each other. Admiral, Jake said, I'd like you to meet Primary Node of the collective. The silence that followed was longer than the space between stars. Finally spoke, you are smaller than I expected. Skin rippled with what might have been amusement. And you are more individual than we anticipated. Jake smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Now, he said, let's talk about ending this war. Outside, the battle continued to rage. But inside the Discovery, something new was happening. For the first time in 300 years, representatives of both sides were in the same room, talking instead of shooting. Jake looked at his crew, then at the two alien leaders. This was the moment that would decide whether the galaxy continued its endless war or finally found a path to peace. The next few hours would change everything. The peace talks began in the most unlikely place in the galaxy. The Discovery's small meeting room now held the most important conversation in 300 years. Admiral sat across from Primary Node, with Jake Turner between them like a bridge connecting two different worlds. "Before we talk about peace," said, "I must know why this war started." Skin shifted to a darker green. "Your people attacked our colony ships 3 centuries ago. Hundreds of thousands died." "That is not true," replied, his crystal skin flashing red. "Your bioweapons destroyed our mining station first. We were defending ourselves." Jake held up his hand. "Wait, both of you think the other side started the war." Dr. Amy had been researching this question for weeks. She activated her computer and showed them what she had found. "I've been studying the historical records from both sides. The truth is more complicated." The screen showed a map of space from 300 years ago. Two expanding civilizations, the and the, were growing toward each other. In the middle was a small system with planets that both sides wanted. "Neither side attacked first," explained. "You were both trying to claim the same worlds. Your colony ships arrived at the same time. There was confusion, fear, and misunderstanding. Someone fired the first shot, but nobody remembers who. The war started because you were afraid of each other," Jake added. "The saw the collective mind and thought it was dangerous. The saw individualism and thought it was chaos. Instead of trying to understand each other, you both chose to fight." And stared at the historical data. 3 centuries of war, trillions of deaths, entire star systems destroyed, all because of a misunderstanding. "Even if that is true," said slowly, "too much blood has been spilled, too many have died. The families of the fallen demand justice." "The collective agrees," said. "The dead must be honored, their sacrifice cannot be meaningless." Jake had expected this. What if their sacrifice wasn't meaningless? What if all those people died to teach the galaxy something important? "What do you mean?" both aliens asked at the same time. Dr. Rachel Stone stepped forward. "In human psychology, we have a concept called learning through pain. Sometimes people don't change until the cost of staying the same becomes too high. Maybe this war had to happen to show both of your civilizations that there's a better way." "The war has cost us everything," admitted. "Our best warriors are dead. Our worlds are in ruins. Our young people know nothing but fighting." "The collective has suffered equally," said. "We have lost countless nodes. Our bioships are dying faster than we can grow new ones. Our resources are nearly gone." Jake saw his chance. "Then why keep fighting? You're both destroying yourselves for a war that nobody can win." "Because we do not know how to stop," said quietly. It was the most honest thing Jake had heard from either side. Both civilizations had been fighting for so long that war was all they knew. Peace seemed impossible because they had forgotten how to live without an enemy. "Let us show you," Jake said. Over the next several hours, the human crew worked with both alien leaders to design something that had never existed before, a plan for peace. It wasn't easy. Every time they made progress, old hatreds and fears would surface. Lieutenant had the breakthrough. "What if we started small? Instead of trying to make peace between your entire civilizations, what if we just stopped the fighting in one system?" "A test," added. "See if and can work together on something simple." They chose a system that had been fought over for decades. It was mostly destroyed, with dead planets and broken moons. Both sides had claimed it, but neither could use it. "We could rebuild it together," Jake suggested. "Individual innovation and collective organization. Show the galaxy that cooperation works better than war." The plan they created was revolutionary. Mixed crews of and would work side by side. Each ship would have members of both species. Decisions would be made using a new system that combined individual leadership with group consultation. But the biggest challenge came when they tried to end the current battle. Thousands of ships were still fighting outside, and their commanders didn't know about the peace talks. Many of our warriors will not understand, warned. They have been taught that they are monsters. The collective faces the same problem, agreed. Many nodes believe the must be eliminated. Jake had an idea. What if we showed them something they've never seen before? What if and ships fought together instead of against each other? It was a dangerous plan. Admiral and Primary Node would each take a small fleet and attack a group of extremists who refused to accept peace. Fighting side by side might convince their people that cooperation was possible. The joint operation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Crystal ships and bioships moved together in perfect harmony. Tactics and strategy combined into something more powerful than either could achieve alone. The extremist forces were so surprised by this alliance that they surrendered without a major battle. News of the joint victory spread through both fleets faster than light. Young warriors on both sides began asking questions. Why were they fighting people who could be their allies? What were they really defending? Was there another way to live? The peace treaty was signed aboard the Discovery 1 month later. Representatives from both civilizations agreed to stop the war and begin working together. They would share technology, knowledge, and resources. Most importantly, they would learn from each other. Jake stood on the observation deck of the Discovery, watching as ships began the first joint patrol in galactic history. Doctor was setting up the new interspecies research station. Lieutenant was already working on ship designs that combined the best of both technologies. "You have given us something we thought was lost forever," Admiral said, joining Jake at the window. "What's that?" Jake asked. "Hope." Primary Node approached them. "The collective wishes to know if humans would be willing to help mediate other conflicts in the galaxy." Jake smiled. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as bridge builders and peacemakers. They had shown the galaxy that the most powerful weapon wasn't technology or strategy, but the willingness to see enemies as potential friends. "We'd be honored to help," Jake said. Outside the window, mixed crews of former enemies worked together to explore regions of space that had been too dangerous to visit during the war. The galaxy was finally free to grow, to learn, and to reach for the stars together. The war that nobody could end was over, and it had taken nothing more than the simple human idea that there was always another way.